Dr. Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, the latest supply and demand report is out. Any surprises?
I don't think there's any surprises in it. There were some changes, and you would always expect those changes. Now, what's important in these reports aren't necessarily the numbers, it's how those numbers match the market's expectations. You look at wheat, and compared to, say, the August WASDE, there was no changes in U.S. wheat situation. They lowered both world production and world ending stocks, and that's significant. World production is no longer a record, so those about 5 years in a row records, we're breaking that. But we're only about 100 million bushels below that record, so it could change. You look at corn, they increased both U.S. and world corn production and increased world ending stocks and U.S. ending stocks. You look at soybeans, they lowered both the production and ending stocks for both the U.S. and world. And cotton, again, they lowered the production and lowered ending stocks. So some significant numbers. The question is, did the market expect it?
Well, and that's the next question. What was the impact on prices?
If you look at price impacts, you'd think for wheat, there's a possibility for higher prices, and we saw that. We saw about a 14-cent price increase that the next day after the report. Current price up to around $6.85. You look at corn as negative, higher U.S. production in any stocks and world. So we had corn price, they dropped off just a little bit for the next day. Some were down around $4.70 for 2023 delivered crop. And if you look at soybeans, now soybean numbers were positive with the lower production around the world in the U.S., and prices fell off of 6-8 cents, which is nothing. So soybeans, those estimates and those numbers were just right at expectations.
Wheat planting is now underway in Oklahoma. Of course, the rain has lifted spirits. How's the market shaping up for 2024?
Well, if you look at what was going on in planting that wheat crop, it was behind schedule. I think we're going to catch up relatively fast. That rain is a blessing coming on to get this wheat in the market. Again, you look at the prices for the July or the 24 harvest. Relative to the current price, it fell off just a little bit. You know, those prices were running relatively close together. You got $6.85 in concrete for current price. You got $6.65 for 24 harvested wheat. So it's still relatively good, but it backed off just a little bit.
What's happening with the Russia-Ukrainian war?
Well, you look, that's going to be a long time war. Ukraine is attacking the positions. They are making some progress. That progress is slow. I think the big news is that Russia's just put hundreds of thousands of landmines, and that they captured 20% of Ukraine's cropland. And they've just inundated that with landmines. Even if this war ended, you couldn't get in there and plant those crops and fill it. You also look at Russian wheat exports. They're going relatively good. They had record exports year over year, this year versus last year of wheat. Ukraine is having some problems getting their wheat out, but they are managing to get some out. So it's just same old, same old. However, it is still the thing the market's watching relative to price.
And how are things shaping up for cotton?
Well, cotton prices, the futures price, 84, 85 on that harvest contract. Not much changes there. You look at the WASDE report, they lowered production in both U.S. and the world for cotton. That's positive for prices. I think the market was expecting that, and that the current numbers support that 80 to 83 cent harvest price for Oklahoma cotton.
Okay, Kim, lots of great information. We'll see you next week.